Why made in Portugal is a new thing. Why fashion designers produce in Portugal. Many high-end fashion brands ended their fashion production in Portugal and shifted their manufacturing and operations to Asia at the end of the 1990s to improve their revenues. For everyone, even designers and premium companies, Hong Kong, China, and India have become textile production centers. And now many luxury brands are making their way to Portugal. But the question is why? Hello guys, welcome to FASHIONY-MAGAZINE. This video will tell you how things have turned out for Portugal and how the country is on the rise again on the list of big fashion brands. Portuguese companies create timeless, cozy, basic apparel for all genders, from primarily natural fibers, including cotton, linen, and reclaimed wool. They published their first sustainability report last year, which detailed CO2 emissions, regional supplier networks, and the effects on Portuguese communities. They have lofty goals to increase their level of transparency. With a leather manufacturing heritage equal to luxury production powerhouses in France and Italy, and offering comparable quality at a significantly lower cost, Made in Portugal is on the rise. Several fashion labels you are familiar with derive their fabrics from Portugal, one of the continent's top exporters of textiles. Riapel, located near Pousada de Saramago, about 36 minutes from Porto, is one of the nation's oldest and most renowned textile producers. Due to its cutting-edge methods and premium synthetic fibers, Riapel has gained several worldwide clients like Zara, Max Mara, Calvin Klein, Versace, Giorgio Armani, and Hugo Boss. The Portuguese Textile Association's president, João Costa, estimates that the nation is home to about 6,353 textile businesses that support 123,463 jobs. 9% of Portugal's exports, or 4.283 million euros, come from this sector. Portugal has caught the attention of even the London-based newspaper Business of Fashion. A recent article cited the expansion of Portugal's exports of leather shoes and accessories as evidence that Made in Portugal is becoming more popular. According to the Portuguese Leather and Footwear Association, Associação Portuguesa dos Industriais de Calçado, Componentes, Artigos de Pele e seus Sucedâneos. From 2006 to 2013, the local leather shoe sector grew exports by 213%. From 36,510,000 pairs to 114,387,000 pairs. According to the International Trade Center, Portugal accounts for 3.8% of the world's leather goods trade, almost a fourth of Italy's 16.58%. The reports further say, 3 factors make Portugal a great supplier, mainly for footwear, according to José Neves, the Portugal founder and CEO of the online fashion marketplace Farfetch, who formerly worked as a shoe designer and did a lot of manufacturing in the area. One with substantially cheaper labor costs has craftsmanship comparable to that of France and Italy. The business comprises a few manufacturers with modest minimal orders, drawing high-end designers and premium brands. 3. Importing raw materials from France, Italy, and the UK, as well as having a sufficient supply of excellent local components, is simple, affordable, and super quick, typically taking 3 days. The cost of skilled Portuguese labor continues to be among the lowest in Europe, despite the Portuguese government exempting artisans under 25 from salary reductions, intended to increase competitiveness. But the quality is quite remarkable. Neves stated, "Developing and producing leather goods in Portugal is an excellent opportunity because you have quasi-Italian quality with Italian or French materials, with an added benefit of limited runs and at a far reduced cost." Portugal may be the ideal location for a designer to open a shop because there are so many materials available, but there are still difficulties. Miguel Flor, the creative director of Bloom, an initiative that supports up-and-coming designers in Portugal by giving them runway shows and placing their creations in stores, said, "It's quite difficult because we don't have quantities. But the good thing is, if they work, if they have their label, if they work for other labels, they can have a super approach with the manufacturers, so it can give them more opportunities to develop things there and also in Copenhagen and Berlin. Rising menswear designer Mafalda Fonseca concurs that young designers encounter difficulties because they require smaller quantities of materials. The lack of financial incentives makes it difficult for young designers in Portugal, but they are making an effort, she said. We are trying to leave Portugal, but being present there is just as vital. However, Manuel Alves and Manuel GONÇALVES, a fashion design pair, have been in the industry for 3 decades and primarily cater to Portugal's ladies who lunch. This is not to argue that success in Portugal is unattainable. Alves claims he buys all the textiles from Portugal and creates uniforms for the Portuguese airline TAP. His advice is to identify your specialization. Being a fashion designer is rewarding, says Alves. You're not stressed out, are you? It's excellent to live in Portugal because we have time for lunch, hanging out with friends, and spending time on vacation at our homes. Designer Luis Buquino continues, we are creating a compelling industry with brands that are getting to be known bit by bit. Buquino just celebrated the 25th anniversary of his brand. While this is happening, companies like Marcos Almeida and Farfetch, a Portuguese entrepreneur-founded e-commerce platform that links independent boutiques to a large consumer market, have shown that it is feasible for Portuguese fashion talent to become internationally recognized. News about Portugal's abundant resources and design talent might surpass Paris or Milan. Consider looking into the following historical information regarding the Portugal clothing manufacturer. Due to their imperial history and influences, Portuguese clothing manufacturers employed materials from all over the world, including cotton and silk from Africa and India. Manufacturers have gained the know-how and technology to produce high-quality clothing at a low cost than many other European nations. This industry dates back to colonial times. In the 19th century, a market for linen production developed. The northern parts of Portugal were well suited to specialize in the industry, and the flax fibers were supplied from Hamburg. This region is provided water through several minor rivers, which is essential to the textile manufacturing sector. Because the dyeing technique for linen produced a pliable textile that softened with washing and was free of harsh, irritating chemicals, it was a particular material used in clothing. The linen trade was not a factory-based business like the cotton industry. People used to weave their bed linens on tiny home looms as a domestic activity. According to ATP, Associação TEXTILE e Vestuários de Portugal, 10% of Portugal's exports, or 5.328 million euros, or 7.610 million euros, were made by the country's clothing manufacturers in 2018. Portugal nevertheless maintains a remarkable history in the garment manufacturing industry. A good illustration of that is the nation's remote north. Over the years of economic depression, gradual abandonment of manufacturing, and vacant warehouses, certain hardy enterprises continued running intact and still reinvigorating. The Portuguese textile industry appears to be here to stay for a long time. But what does it truly mean to make apparel in Portugal? There must be some solid factors that are making the brands turn to Portugal for their operations. Practices in employee and labor relations is one part that's making big organizations move forward with Portugal. It is essential to keep in mind that the 2008 financial crisis had a significant impact on Portugal's labor circumstances. Various amendments have been made to the labor laws to mitigate the effects of the economic crisis. The estimate of working hours has been altered to allow for better adjustments to declining order volume and more significant seasonal variance. Portugal is considered a nation where respect for human rights permeates every aspect of daily life. This is especially crucial when we believe this sector is founded on the propensity to select plants, where worker protection has dramatically deteriorated in favor of cheap labor and big profit margins. With lower labor costs and new working time arrangements, labor market practices have become more flexible, which increases the position of employers generally, while, on the other hand, reducing the social partner's ability to bargain for better working conditions. Because of this, it is acceptable to state that Portugal has socially responsible labor practices. Environmental responsibility. Environmental regulations must be followed for any clothes factory in Portugal to conduct business. Working to align systems, practices, and processes with the European Union and ISO environmental standards has been one of the textile industry's top goals over the past few years. On stage, it is customary to implement coordinated efforts with other nations that have a concern for the environment. Along with certifications like BCI, Better Cotton Initiative, GOTs, and sustainability, many businesses have also created sustainable fibers and fabrics. Portugal has become a haven for natural materials, more delicate textiles, and environmentally friendly fashion production methods. The majority of its output is the outerwear and weaving. And in 2019, the Portuguese manufacturing industry employed 18% of its workforce in textile and clothing, followed by 14% in food items. The Portuguese textile and apparel industry notes that between July 2019 and July 2021, exports to France known for its premium name brands climbed by almost 14%. The overall value of exports was 417 million euros in 2019, up 40 million in 2020, and rising to 474 million euros in 2021. The United States and other European nations are boosting their exports from Portugal. Between 2019 and 2021, textile exports to Germany increased by 5.5%. Hugo Boss and Highsnobiety, two companies that frequently create goods, have their headquarters. Portugal saw a 23% increase in exports to the United States, slightly behind Denmark, the Scandinavian design mecca and home of Copenhagen Fashion Week, which saw a 25% growth in exports of textiles worth millions of euros during that period. 15% more was produced in the Netherlands, while 9% more was made in Italy. Both auditable and open. More than 1,100 people died in a tragedy on April 24, 2013, when the Rana Plaza factory in Bangladesh collapsed. Many different stores' labels could be found among the debris. Brands assert that they were unaware that their products were made in that illegal structure built on swampland. Following this significant occurrence, garment firms are becoming increasingly worried about the harm to their brand image and reputation, and the expenses involved should there be no way to track the item's supply chain. One of the key factors contributing to Portugal's capacity to differentiate itself from its rivals is the requirement for traceability throughout fashion supply chains. Traceability throughout the supply chain and the provision of clear subcontractor information are the two primary crucial success criteria for brands and retailers. Did you know that Portugal has qualified personnel who can conduct an international standards-compliant integrated management system audit? Consider the standards ISO 9001, ISO 14001, and SA 8000. Additionally, most of the Portuguese apparel industry, from distribution to design, is based in northern Portugal. The fact that this cluster spans the whole value chain results in significant synergistic interactions amongst businesses. Indeed, with so much to offer, from human rights to friendliness and taking care of the environment, no doubt Portugal is ahead of its game, and in the future, we see the country making history in terms of fashion that deliver a message of sustainability. Portugal has a long history and has unquestionably made a name for itself as a reliable, adaptable, and cost-effective powerhouse for European leather manufacturing. But Made in Portugal must build a stronger brand in the eyes of final consumers if it wants to compete with Italy, or its chances may be limited. This is it for today, guys. I hope you have enjoyed all the information. If you want to know more about fashion, brands, society, and people, then subscribe to our channel and ring the bell icon to receive the latest information notifications. Thank you so much for watching. See you next time right here at Fashiony Magazine.